Círoבין, Perik Aleph, Mishnah Beis. The second Mishnah begins with the Hechsher Movoi, and as was pointed out when we learnt the previous Mishnah, it would have been more appropriate to begin the Masechta with this Mishnah, which tells you exactly, positively, how you make a Hechsher for a Movoi, and the first Mishnah, which tells you how, if the Hechsher Movoi has been done incorrectly, then what do you do about it? But as we mentioned in the Gemara asked this question, and this is the Seder of the Mishnah for the reasons mentioned, which we mentioned on the first Mishnah. Hechsher Movoi. What is the Hechsher? What is the appropriate way of providing a tikkun for the Movoi? Beis Shammai Omrim, Beis Shammai say, you require two forms of Hechsher, and one without the other is insufficient. That is, you require lechi. A lechi is a post, an upright post, adjacent to the mechitza of the movoi, v'koro, and in addition, you require a cross beam resting on the two opposite walls on the fourth side. And if you only have a lechi, that would not be sufficient to be mashal the movoi. And if you only have a kora, that also would not be sufficient. You need both. Beis Hillel Omrim, Beis Hillel say, lechi, you can either have a post, a single post, which would be 10 tefachim high. The width of the post could be a mashu, it doesn't have to be of any substantial amount. O koro. Alternatively, you could have a beam, as we described in the first Mishnah. The beam, of course, would have to be placed, according to the halacha and according to the Tanna Kamma of the previous Mishnah, which is the halacha, would have to be placed within a height of 20 amos from the ground, and the koro would rest on the two opposite walls, closing off the fourth side, open side of the movoi. And as we have mentioned, it only works provided the gap is less than 10 amos. So if the fourth side is much wider than 10 amos, you'd have to put some boards up to reduce the width of the fourth side in order to utilize a koro. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion, lechoyayin, that you require two posts, not one lechi on one side of the fourth side adjacent to the mechitza, but you require two lechis, one opposite the other, and that closes off the movoi on the fourth side. Mishum Rabbi Yishmael Omar Talmud Echod Lifnei Rabbi Akiva. In the name of Rabbi Yishmael, one Talmud said before Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara tells us that this Talmud was in fact Rabbi Meir, who was a Talmud both of Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva at various times. And he qualifies this machlokus between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel as follows: Lo nechleku Beis Shammai u Beis Hillel al movoi shehu pochus me arba amos. If the opening is a smaller opening, and is less than 4 amos, roughly 7 feet, let us say, then even Beis Shammai would agree that you don't require the stringency of having both a lechi and a kora, and then you could use either a lechi or a kora. Shehu oba lechi over kora. Even Beis Shammai would agree you could close off the movoi and make it into a proper reshus hayochid, either by use of a lechi or a single lechi, or by use of the kora, the beam. Al ma nechloku. In what case do they argue? Al rachav me arba amos v'ad eser. If the gap is between 4 amos up to 10 amos. Shebe Shammai omrim lechi v'koro. In such a case, say Beis Shammai, as the gap is wider than 4 amos, of course only up to 10 amos, because if it's beyond 10 amos then we require a tzuras ha-pesach, as we've learnt in the previous Mishnah. But if it's from 4 amos up to 10 amos, then Beis Shammai are machmir that you require a lechi and a koro. And on that, Beis Hillel said, Beis Hillel omrim, o lechi, o koro, either or, either a lechi, a single lechi, or a cross beam. On that, Rabbi Akiva responds, Omar Rabbi Akiva, it is not so. The machlokus between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel was in both cases. Al zeh ve'al zeh nechleku. That Beis Shammai are of the opinion that even if it's a narrow movi, where the gap is only less than 4 amos, nonetheless, Beis Shammai still retain their opinion that you require the 2 tikkunim, a lechi and a koro. One is not sufficient. Ad kan Mishnah Beis.